there was one morning where I was in the bathroom getting ready for work, and I was blow drying my hair. And in their bathroom, they had a whole bunch of mirrors. I was living at their house at the time. And this black energy just went through all the mirrors. And I went out, and I was still developing at that point. And I went out and I went, oh my God, that was so cool. She went, you are not going to work today. And I said, it was just this like thing that went through the windows. And I'm not a big proponent of dark energy as a negative. I just think that it could have very well been just a guide trying to get my attention, knowing that Sally knew better than I did. So I didn't listen because I had a job and I was trying to be responsible. And sure enough, I got into a very bad car accident that day. And Sally called UCLA the minute the accident happened and said, where is she? Is she okay? And then they didn't get the call for like half an hour that I had had an accident.
Welcome in. I'm Kimberly. I'm so glad you're here today. I have one of my very favorite people on the show that I've had so many wonderful experiences with. You are going to love her. If you're enjoying this content, make sure you hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. And if you want to keep track of what's going on the planet, but it feels a little overwhelming, I don't blame you. You might want to sign up for our Friday morning email newsletter. The link is in the description box down below. Every Friday morning, we send out a short, sweet, but informative newsletter trying to capture all the important things that we think transpired on the planet that past week and things that you might want to know. It's super easy to sign up. You just click the link down below. I think you're going to love it. And with that, I want to introduce one of my favorite people on the planet, medium Austyn Wells. Austyn, how are you?
I'm a little flabbergasted and overwhelmed with that introduction. So thank you very much. I'm better for sure.
Yeah. Well, I want to start. We're going to do something a little unusual. We're going to start this interview with a story from me. I became aware of Austyn about, gosh, it's been about 7 years now. And I think I found her on the internet and I sort of was following her and I really liked her. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to book an appointment with her because I want to talk with my guides and, just get the lowdown on what's going on with my mission on Earth and that sort of thing. So I booked an appointment online with her. Now, in between the time that I booked the appointment and I actually had the appointment, my youngest daughter passed away. Well, you can imagine how my life was at that time. Well, the appointment came up and I thought, I might as well do it because I can sob on Zoom just as easily as I can sob in my bed. So I hopped on with Austyn and she was so lovely and we greeted each other and she says, I understand why you booked this appointment, but your daughter is right here. And I think that's what we need to do today. And that's what we did. And I just got goosebumps recalling that story. And I have to say that in my journey of walking through that pain of my daughter, that was one of the most helpful things that happened along the way. So I just want to thank you for that.
You're welcome.
There is so much healing that can come from a good, caring, loving medium, and it made the world of difference for me. So thank you.
You're so welcome. However, I also want to say, isn't the soul in the universe amazing? That the appointment was made prior to that moment. So in that moment, you could have a completely different level of support than maybe you would have thought to reach out for. And then A+ on your daughter for stepping in and going, okay, I'm here. Hello.
Yeah. Hello. Let's talk.
Yeah. And just getting in there immediately, which the kids are really amazing at doing.
Yeah.
They are.
And we had such a lovely conversation. It was completely unexpected from my side of it. But the connectedness, all that Grace said, this everything, I was walking on air, on clouds. It turned everything around for me. And it really started me on a path of exploration, understanding, communicating. It was just so wonderful. It's one of my favorite memories. So
Well,
thank you.
that moment is devastating, and it shouldn't be. There shouldn't be a moment where a soul that is younger than us, passes away. However, those moments happen. But if those that are walking the planet can be open to a different journey with the soul, that's when it really gets interesting.
Yeah, it does. It
Because
opens up so many doors.
you are always a mother and she's always a daughter. And if she was as strong minded as I remember, she would continue to be that lighthouse in the spirit world and entice you into different levels of your soul's journey or your becoming, simply because she's tenacious and fun, and because she's sassy, your
Yeah.
daughter.
Yeah, she is. She was fun.
She's like stepping in. She's like, "Tell mom I'm still here." I'm like, okay.
She's around
And
all the time. I love it.
and just out of curiosity, who's the birthday that just passed in the family? Celebration birthday that would have been, let me path this correctly. It would have been the end of February that would have had significance.
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. It could be a anniversary. It could be,
It was my daughter's wedding.
okay.
Yeah,
So
that's what it
she's
was.
pulling me to that. She's just pulling me to that, just as a sign of being
Yes.
present, even in this moment, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was really wonderful. And I knew she was there because she would not miss that. I mean, she
No,
was just in the middle of it.
no,
Thank
no.
you.
She loved that moment very much.
It was really fun. It
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
So
Anyway.
let's talk about you. I would like to start, and thank you for being so gracious. I would like to start with how you got started being a medium. It's one of the most interesting stories that I've heard about mediums because I don't think anybody says, well, I want to be a medium when I grow up.
Hmm, hmm, hmm. Well, I think before I mention the story, the component of mediumship that I think is unaddressed, is it's super fun to talk with these souls in spirit. And they're always in the most spectacular place, as Grace just exhibited by being, spunky and funky. And she's got the essence of her is distilled to perfection still, and probably even more than sometimes she could carry always within our life. But the grief part, the human pain and suffering, is a completely equal part of mediumship, which is part of the reason why I've made sure that I'm a grief counselor and that my shaman training came into play and that I have life coaching skills and I have all those things, because talking to the spirit world, as you well know, is the beginning of the conversation. That is, dealing with the loss of someone opens up your soul to so many other questions, like, well, wait a minute, they died, where did they go, what are they doing, was I here before? If they died and I can talk to them, then what does that mean for me? And who have I been before? And then what's life about? And if you're curious at all, that moment is really, to me, the enlightenment opportunity. So mediumship is a big conversation, but I think I again applaud you for having the wherewithal or the coincidence or whatever we want to call it, to just have that moment, that intersection, to open that conversation up. Because some people, that doesn't happen. How I started, back to that. Yeah, it's kind of a funny story. So my mom, who I learned to love and was probably my best teacher in my lifetime, was a little bit of a narcissist. So she wasn't emotionally available. And I wanted to be aligned with her so desperately. So there was a fashion show when I was 5 years old that she was in, and my mom was beautiful. And I had to wear a bridesmaid dress, and I was clunky and awkward to begin with, let alone having a tulle thing around me that I couldn't see my feet. So I was supposed to walk up these stairs and go down the runway, and I was convinced I was going to trip. So in the middle of the night, I can't wake my mom up. So I just started praying. At that point, I think I still knew God was tangible and available. And all of a sudden, all the walls in my room started undulating, almost as if it went from a physical reality to an energetic reality. And 40, 50, maybe more, kind of like an old Verizon commercial of people walked into my bedroom or floated into my bedroom. And they were unfamiliar to me, but I had no fear at all. And one woman came up to me and spoke to me heart to heart, not, with language, but I could hear her inside, outside, and within my being. And she said, "We're here to support you." And then all of a sudden, my room became two realities. It was the reality of the moment I was in with all the people. And then there was a separate reality to my right. That was the runway of the next day. It wasn't blown up in full scale, but I was like witnessing it. And then once I was caught, I figured out where I was, I became me in that future moment. And I became in the moment of walking up the stairs, which was what I was afraid of. And they allowed me to go into the future to witness I wasn't going to fall and everything was going to be fine. Then once I got up the stairs, thank God, and started walking down the runway, then they had me shapeshift to the audience and feel what the audience was feeling toward me walking down the runway. And I could feel their love, and I was cute, or I was, terrified, and they knew it. There was a lot of compassion and sweetness. And then they had me become the energy of the whole room and feel the spiritual support of the room. So there was nothing about the space of the room that was anything else but support. I was the only disconnect. And even at 5 years old, I went, oh, okay, I'm going to be fine. So I don't have to worry about it anymore. Immediately with that realization, I was back in bed, and less people in the room, but still the lovely lady that came up to me. And then she kind of checked in and went, "Are we good?" I was like, "Yeah, good." And then she disappeared into the walls, and I went back to sleep. And the next day was exactly as I had the experience the night before.
Wow. How did that shift your understanding, even at that very young age?
I realized there's a 24/7 access. I realized prayers get answered. I realized that fear is a moment in which we're going to discover something about ourselves if we have the willingness to step into it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
People
Yeah.
feel fear, energetically, and they kind of lean out of it. And, there's a lot of people talking about leaning into things. Well, it's a force of energy, but it's like a force field. It's like a soul space, an energy field. So if you allow yourself to align with that fear, you're stepping into a different element of yourself. You're stepping into a part of yourself that you've forgotten or is being brought back to you, or maybe you've never tapped into. So I think if we can always look at fear as simply a moment in time that we haven't explored, that is stronger than we are because we will become stronger by becoming it,
Mhm.
then it's an invitation to expand and grow.
Yeah. Which is what we're doing here.
Mm,
That's the whole point and purpose of coming to this reality system.
yeah.
Yeah. So as you started into your teen years, when did you start really sensing spirit or getting information that you realized other people weren't getting?
I had it pretty strong when I was little. Like I knew if I prayed for people, they would get better. Now that was not an ego statement. That was just an awareness that there was some groovy field of energy that when I kind of had, a hand holding moment with that there was a dynamic energy you could utilize to kind of bring into this dimension and enhance things. Then, of course, when we're in teenage years, we get distracted by, other two-legged beings on the planet and that exploration of being physical. So I think I lost it a little bit in that time period. But then my first boyfriend, his mom was amazingly spiritual. She was a Rosicrucian, which is a fabulous exploration of psychic abilities. She loved tarot cards. She loved all of that. So she was an aspect of a mother I'd always been searching for. And so she encouraged me to really step into all of that and was a great guide. She was a great guide. There was one morning where I was in the bathroom getting ready for work. and I was blow drying my hair. And in their bathroom, they had a whole bunch of mirrors. I was living at their house at the time. And this black energy just went through all the mirrors. And I went out, and I was still developing at that point. And I went out and went, oh my God, that was so cool. You are not going to work today. And I said, it was just this like thing that went through the windows. And I'm not a big proponent of dark energy as a negative. I just think that it could have very well been just a guide trying to get my attention, knowing that Sally knew better than I did. So I didn't listen because I had a job and I was trying to be responsible. And sure enough, I got into a very bad car accident that day. And Sally called UCLA the minute the accident happened and said, where is she? Is she okay? And then they didn't get the call for like half an hour that I had an accident. So we have good teachers along the way.
Along the way. I would like to branch off into a conversation because I know you'll be up for this. I know this will be good for you or interesting to you. What I would like to take a look at is how we handle death in our society. And in my opinion, we do it so poorly. We do it so poorly, and it causes so much more grief and pain than it needs to.
Yeah.
And I know that Indigenous cultures are much more open and understanding about it. And we not only do we fear it, it is heartbreaking when it happens. We don't know where people go, but we don't prepare ourselves for the transition either. And that's something that I feel like we could completely revamp the whole topic, particularly in Western civilizations, and have such a healthier society as a result. What are your thoughts on that?
Lots.
Good. I thought you might have a lot.
And I love you asking this from your own experience. So I have a couple of different layers of response. One is people are comfortable with the death of someone that they understand the death of for a limited amount of time. So generally for the first year after somebody's died, you get lots of support. You get people wanting to make food. You get people wanting to take you out and everything. Hit the year mark, people don't know what to talk about anymore, especially if it's a complicated death. So do you understand that from your grief experience?
Yeah, I do. It's you become a person that people have to almost manage at sometimes, or their perception is they need to manage you.
Excellent adjustment. Yeah. It's more about the individual's lack of ability to be present to a person that's going through something they don't want to experience. So instead of taking the moment, here's the fear thing. Instead of taking the moment as an opportunity to learn and listen, they'll try to either fix it or push it away and be inconvenienced by it, which makes a person's grief even more long. So
Yeah.
in my book, when I wrote my book, my publishers wanted me to write a chapter about grief. And I said, I don't want to give you a whole bunch of facts that you can find in other periodicals and talk about my mediumship experiences. I'm going to give this chapter to 3 moms whose children have passed away. And I'm going to have them talk about what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, and teach us. And it was exactly what they did. And they were great. They were like, sometimes I don't want to talk. I just want company. Don't fix it. Please don't tell me it happened for a reason. That's the individual trying to make peace with something they don't understand and trying to put a band-aid on it. There will never be a reason for Grace's death, ever, ever. They'll things that you'll understand about it, but it's not right. It's just not fair, on the human being level. So that part of it, there's a beautiful education. Now, on the good news, because I'm an optimist, there is a huge revelation because I was part of an afterlife conference for 8 years, where we were talking about death and dying and death awareness and so on and so forth. There's a huge culture now of death doulas and deathbed visions. And William Peters has a lovely book about deathbed visions. There was a doctor who has a TEDx talk whose name is escaping me in this moment, who also was talking to people prior to their passing about what they were experiencing kind of in the deathbed vision part. So there's a lot of people who have chosen to take on that kind of conundrum and transform it into a, let's make this much more real. And where we got disenfranchised, and I know I'm kind of tangenting in different directions, but in the mid 1800s, death became impersonal. It used to happen in our house. That was in the middle class. There was a thing called the parlor, and the parlor was where they had parties and they had all these things, but it was also where they had weddings and they had funerals. So if you went down the street to the drugstore, you could buy toothpaste, soap, and a coffin. And you could bring, I know, typical shopping day. And so that happened in the parlor. So what would happen is, and this was up until the Civil War, because people would die around the community. So they'd bring them back into the house. And for a couple of days, we did exactly as the indigenous did. We sat with our loved ones when they had died. And they had parties and they drank and they shared stories. So it was a shared grief experience that was just natural to our culture. When the Civil War happened, people died away from communities, and we didn't have the technology to be able to preserve bodies. So we had to figure out formaldehyde, we had to figure out all sorts of things. And we can thank Abraham Lincoln because he did a 16-state train tour that went around the United States because people needed to see him. But remember, he got shot. So that was the beginning of the funeral business. That was the beginning of makeup artists that took care of people. That was when preserving a body came in. That's when hearses came in. So Abraham Lincoln not only died and had a very, very famous, long viewing of his body that was over a month, which demanded a lot of medical attention and patching, but he also kind of birthed the funeral industry. So then at the same time, hospitals came online at the beginning of the industrial age. And so death became invisible. So they call it invisible death. So suddenly it wasn't happening in the home. We weren't ceremonializing it, which is what our brain understands. And we were allowing it to take place in a forum that was foreign. So then death became invisible and we became afraid of it.
Yeah, and we became so removed from the whole process.
Absolutely.
Which I don't think, from my perspective, did not help, does not help with the whole thing. The other thing that I wish that, from my perspective, and maybe I'm alone in this, but what I would prefer to see out there is an understanding that when anyone transitions, regardless of their age, where they are in life, that they're done. They're done. They had come, they did what they were going to do, and they're done.
Yeah.
And the exit points are lined up prior to incarnation. We have a few options, and sometimes they take them. And having that knowledge that we're all here on a particular journey, we have things we want to focus on, learn, process, experience. And when we're done, we're done.
And can I just say, what an extraordinary statement from a mother whose daughter is in spirit.
Thank you.
I really mean that.
Thank you.
I really mean that, because I hope people that are viewing this understand the depth of self-exploration, acceptance, spiritual understanding, and integration that's had to happen in order for you to come up with a statement that you can say very neutrally as a truth that makes sense to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that.
And look at what it's birthed is a desire to have these kind of conversations. So of course, her name is Grace, right? Of course. She would be behind this as part of, a mutual soul growth. So what an interesting plan both of you would have kind of agreed to. And I love the fact that that's a way that framing makes sense for you.
Yeah. And here's something I want to share. And Austyn, you won't be surprised about this, but for those that are watching, I talk a lot about following that spark or that interest or whatever, that's your soul kind of nudging you in the direction of where to go next.
Yeah.
I was having this constant chatter in my mind to start this channel. You know, I have another channel on YouTube. It's very successful. It's fun, completely different topic. But I kept getting pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. And finally, one day I just said, all right, fine, I'll do it. And then, and the energy went from being stubbornly, you know, being pushed to go, go, go. And and there we have it. So it was just an example of me hearing, hearing, hearing. And once I said, all right, all the energy changed. So that's an example, I think, of following those little nudges that we get.
Yeah. And thank God you listened to it too.
Yeah.
I think the universe is very patient with us. I think they have to be.
They have to be,
Because,
because yeah,
yeah,
it's pretty
because
dense in this reality system.
it is. And sometimes it's a little bit more like a cattle prod than a little spark, you know, that's coming in like a sparkler. Um, so, but at those moments, I think, are so beautifully laid out in front of us. However, if they're not paid attention to, then the universe, if it's really mandatory to a soul, they will cattle prod you into your becoming. And that's when people's, you know, something just massive happens. So the job that they were really unhappy at suddenly ends, and they have no idea what to do, even though they were thinking about getting another job. So it's always interesting to track things back to find what that was. But I'm really glad that you listened.
Yeah. Yeah. What are you seeing? Because we're in this real, I think that we're in this really big change on the planet. You know, we're changing humanity itself, our awareness of who we are and the world around us and the universe around us. Everything's shifting right now. And there's a lot of talk about we're going from 3D to 5D to 4D. We haven't discussed this, you and I. I don't know how you feel about that. What are you seeing in your practice, in your communication with spirit, and also how other people's abilities or their perceptions are opening up?
Well, if we're moving to 5D, I haven't gotten my glasses yet, so I need to make some phone calls.
Yeah.
Yes, I think there are definitely dimensional shifts. Now, I think that term merits a moment of attention. It's not so much a shift as an opening in consciousness of another level of consciousness, another bandwidth of our own soul space, having access to a vortex, a dimension, something that has the next level of evolution to us. Shifting from where we were to the age of Aquarius, that was asking us to make a fundamental shift. If people are not aware of the fact that things have changed in the last 5 years, I think they're not going to look at their needing to be changed, but everything points to needing to bring that which is unconscious into consciousness. There is a tremendous amount of expression of, so we have to talk about it on two different levels. Our soul is dualistic. We have a human being and a spiritual being all living in the same house. And that's a whole argument to begin with. You know, your human being is your ego. It's the way you identify yourself as an individual and the way that you might look at your life as happening to you. Then your soul is infinite, doesn't have any kind of ending in sight, and is aware that everything happens for me and as an expansion opportunity. So those two conversations are already going to contradict each other. And you can hear it in people when they say, well, a part of me wants to, and a part of me wants to. Yeah, it's because they're disenfranchised and not in the same moment because they're growing. So we're all growing right now. And we have been unconscious as a nation in particular, to our level of discontent within our own country, where we are not at peace, where we are not a United States of America. I'm wondering if for a while we actually might need to change the name of the country because we are not united. Now, it's not about conforming everybody to the same idea. It's about understanding that the whole idea of our country is diversity. And so if we're very solidly in one lane, we should get very familiar with the other lanes because that's what this country was originated to allow. So that's going to bring up a fair amount of resistance because the ego needs to be right. And that's solidly our human being. What the spirit world is saying about this is probably it's about time. um, but more, it's an invitation for people to really ask themselves the very questions that your channel is kind of puppeting and saying, hi there, think about this, is just considering it's not about being in alignment with everybody else. It's about having a very solid truth within yourself of what you believe. And when I've always wondered this about when they talk about the second coming of God or the second coming of Jesus, I've always believed that the second coming is when that idea of that spirit is so strong within you that it's within you instead of externalized. So if God is presented in churches and in Bible and so on and so forth, we witness it externally because our human being is seeing things that represent it and we read things about it. And that's how we understand God. I believe the second coming is when we become God in action. And it's not driven by the human being in us. It is expanded into the infinite part of us, the spiritual part of us. So it gives us the patience and the understanding. I mean, Jesus was a master teacher, leads with his heart, had incredible empathy for any person, no matter what their level of judgment, disagreement, anything, and just walked this world trying to bring things together. If we could all come from that place of peace and love and community with each other, this would be a very different place. So to me, it's a magnificent opportunity right now to really take the time to procure a defined and intimate relationship with however you look at that infinite intelligence, whether it's God or Buddha or however it's distilled. It doesn't, that part is personal to the individual, but above that is a single consciousness that unites all. And that's what I believe we're working toward.
Yeah, I certainly hope you're right. And the thing that what you just said, the thing that really I question often is why is there so much contention? I mean, it's like everybody's fighting about everything. And I was talking to another woman who talked about the concept of a strong community with loose ties.
Mm,
And what that meant is that we're all here for each other. We are united. However, how you choose to express yourself, that's your decision. So
yes.
those are the loose ties. In other words, we're all supportive. We're all together. We support however you want to be. You be you. We have loose ties, but we're always there for each other. And it almost seems as though we've lost that, particularly in the US right now, or maybe we just feel it more because this is where we live. Maybe it's the same in other countries. And I'm wondering if it's almost the crescendo, Austyn, where it's becoming so argumentative, the world around us, that it's just going to break, and then everybody's going to come down to this compassion, just that we've got to come to a place of love. We've got to come to a place of deciding that you are me, and we all have to work together to make this succeed for anyone.
I think the contention that you mentioned is an externalization of discontent within.
I think, yes, I think
And
you're right.
I think the issue and the invitation, why the spiritual invitation is so strong right now, is when, and I can speak to this because I have corroborable evidence of times in my life where I was not in alignment and times that I've worked very hard to be, and the difference in who I am, not only to myself and in relationship to myself, but how I am in relationship to others. By taking the time to nurture a relationship with God, I have also created a space of unconditional love for myself.
Oh,
And
that's
my
beautiful.
inner voice used to be heinous toward me. And it was partially voices I heard from other people, but really it was just this part of me that needed healing, that had believed other people's judgment of me, the external world was more important than my own opinion. And
Yeah.
when I could reconcile that and find stillness within my soul. And please know, I'm saying all this, not saying I've arrived at some level of nirvana, because I'm beyond human. But once I found a relationship with myself and I could reach a level of contentment and understand what satiated me, then I can hold space for people that haven't quite figured that out yet, because I know where they are. Then it's compassion, not because I'm practicing compassion. It's compassion because I understand where they are and what they're going through. And I'm not trying to fix it, which would be my ego and also the part of me that wouldn't want to experience it, because I don't want to go through that again. So I'm going to try and fix it because I don't want to deal with it. It's the
Yeah.
spiritual part of me going, God, Austyn, that's you. That was you a couple of moments ago. Can you hold space for essentially yourself reflected in another? And can you let them exhibit that behavior? And by doing so, I'm loving myself more deeply. And I'm also holding a space for that person to feel that kind of love, whether they know that or not, or they're just having a really tough moment. And that's what the spiritual practice is. It's not going to a place on a certain day and going, blah, 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 blah. That part is fantastic. And that's a ritual. And we need that. Our brain needs that. But it's the every moment integration of constantly being in dialogue with ourselves about what is this moment asking of me and how can I best show up in this moment.
Mhm.
And that spiritual relationship to me is that kind of second coming. It's like having that voice. You were talking about the voices coming to you and asking you to do and all that kind of thing. That small still voice, when that is integrated, is as loud as your own voice. And that balance is a perfect way of moving forward, but it takes time.
Yeah, and it
It's
takes an
lifetime.
awareness that's missing. I was having this sort of conversation with myself the other day, feeling frustrated that there were certain powers that be that seemed to have been lying. They're just lying, lying, lying. And I was so tired of the lies.
Yeah.
And once I said that, what I realized back, the clap back was, we're lying back to them or to the world. And what I mean by that is, we as a population, we get up and we do things we don't want to do to be able to afford things we don't really need in order to present a persona that that's not really us. So when I recognized that they can't lie without us lying back, it became so apparent to me that we have literally lost ourselves along the way. And just like you said, finding that little grain of truth inside yourself, that point that feels real, that feels like, oh, I want to be there for a long time and I want to make it bigger. And this feels so comfortable. And all of a sudden, when I walk into a room, I'm really connecting with everyone. Then we become who we can be to be able to be that united again.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's such a gorgeous, explanation of how the macrocosm is a reflection of the microcosm. And if you can allow yourself, even with the person or people who are the most disrespectful to you or the most injurious, ask yourselves, what in them is me? Where am I that way in the world? Because I would not be triggered by someone if they weren't reflecting something back that I haven't found acceptance with within myself. And if I
Mhm.
can find that thread, then, as the Stoics kind of pronounce, you can have a neutral response to things and just go, wow, that person is really not judgment, but you can find a witnessing to the way that people are in the world, which is very different than that, you know, which is a reaction to it, which means our emotions are in gear. And that means our human being is having the response to it. So to me, having that sense of the duality, you can always figure out, like, if you're having an emotional response to something, if you can't detach from something, if your brain is getting triggered and you're looping over an event, your human being is traumatized somehow by something. And it really is so nurturing to sit down with yourself and say, what's going on? You've been having a dialogue with the mirror in your car with this person who's not in the car and not by the mirror for the last 3 days. Let's think about this a moment and figure out what you got your panties in a bundle about. And those times, it takes a second, but I can track it. And this is where working as a shaman has been really helpful, because the shamanic skills and it's essentially energy medicine, really, if you think about it. Energy medicine tools, or an energy medicine practitioner, unlike a therapist, is not going to be telling you to tell the story. They're going to have you feel the energy of the event without the story. Then you can change it. And a lot of trauma training is really about meeting the energy, like EFT tapping is really about, where is the energy? I want to be with the energy, and I want to tap into my brain that I'm okay feeling this energy in this moment, not that moment. So if we can just have a dialogue with the energy, or have different tools and techniques to nurture ourselves in those moments, you can come out of those moments learned and expanded and growing. And to me, that's what it's about. But we've got to be able to witness our own behavior well enough to say, oh, wow, God, I'm really pissed off right now. I got to look at that. And then with that, then I think change can happen. But that really demands that everybody is not selfishly just thinking about themselves, but realizing that they are contributing to the energy in the macrocosm when they're out of control. So if you're not dealing with your anger, you're going out into the world being a little pissy. So you're not going to have the same kind of consideration and love toward another human being, even though you're having a bad day, which is acceptable. But that's not acceptable to kind of that onto somebody else, because you're not in management of yourself.
Yeah.
And I think we're experiencing that. People are angry about a lot of stuff, but we're giving them targets to get angry at, instead of saying, let's spend some time focused on you.
Yeah.
What are you doing? How's your life? Do you know what you're passionate about? Are you doing things you love? Are you supported every day? Do you have what you need? Like those basic things, if our country could focus on nurturing those aspects of people, we would have unity, we would have a United States, and we would also have a kind of a larger authoritarian system that would be honestly supporting us,
Mhm.
as many European countries do.
How do we go about shifting that energy though? That's kind of where we're at right now, is that it's building up to this point. And then how do we get to that place that, unless we heal ourselves and come from a place that's really real inside of us, we're getting all,
Yeah,
I'm using all the buzzwords. I won't.
those were,
Yeah.
yeah.
How do we make that shift?
It comes from realizing that there's two realities. There's the reality that you witness outside of you, and then there's your reality. One you are absolutely in control of, the other one, you're never going to be in control of it. So if your opinion of yourself is based on what people think of you, if you're trying to get attention from people outside of yourself, that is going to breed instability, because no one outside of you, no one on the planet, minus a couple of people that probably have transitioned and a couple of people that are here that have created some kind of stability within themselves, you're never really going to get from another human being what you actually need. So by focusing on the relationship with yourself, and that isn't like, oh, I love myself, I'm so fabulous. It's not that kind of thing. It's having unconditional love for all of you, no matter what it is, no matter what you've been told or what your experiences have been, that you are defined by the stories that you tell. And if you're the master storyteller, what's the story you're talking about when you talk to people? Not everybody has to hear the pain and the suffering, because there's a lot of that right now. So I think finding ways to just learn to love yourself and come within, and most importantly, find stillness. So you have that objectivity and that distance to say, oh boy, it's really loud out there. I got to come. I want to find a place where I can be really quiet, whether it's nature, or it's meditation, or it's being with a child or a pet, or nurturing love, giving back, whatever that feeling is when you're Because honestly, there's just two energies. We're either disconnecting or we're connecting. We all need connection. That's it. We all need connection. And yet the anger is the fact we feel disconnected. So you know what, where you connect, you know what it is that you need. The more you can be clear on that, take care of yourself, nurture yourself, the better you can hold space for other people. And also not be so affected if someone comes at you with something. You can, instead of going, oh my God, they don't like me. Felt like Sally Field, old Sally Field from the Academy Awards years ago, right?
You
Instead of
like me. You really, really
you
like
like
me.
it, you really like it. Instead of it, and apparently there's a great podcast with Julia Louise-Dreyfus where she talks with Sally Field about that very moment and how far she's come from there. But anyway, it's about if you're in right relationship with yourself, you can allow someone else to have a bad day and not take it personally because they're just having a bad day. And then if you want to, you can take what they've said and say, okay, let's break it down. Okay, they said I was being inconsiderate. Is that true? Like, where could I have been more considerate? Oh, wow, they're actually right about this. This other part, God, their dog is sick right now. They got a lot on their plate. I'm kind of give them a hall pass on that. But this thing, thank you, thank you, thank you for teaching me. I can be a better human being. I'm so grateful. And then that piece that connects you to that person instead of disconnects, you thank them for it. Thank you so much for bringing that forward. I really appreciate it. I'm always working on trying to be a better person. I'm so grateful you took the time to try to help me be a better person. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So if you can always focus on the connection with the people that you're with, your relationships get better. And people actually like you because you're not walking around, talking smack.
All the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's shift into the energy shift or what we're seeing on the planet. And what I'm noticing is that I and friends are becoming more sensitive to energies that we maybe have not perceived in the past. For instance, I had a girlfriend who was out the other day and she saw elementals in the trees.
Ooh, how fun.
I know, and I said, "Are you kidding me? You didn't call me right away and tell me that?" Why are we, and I can feel it myself. I can feel my telepathy is just much more acute now. What's happening to us as humans that we're starting to perceive more than we perceived in the past?
Well, I'm not so certain it isn't that we haven't been able to perceive it in the past. Perhaps we haven't been open to the conversation before.
Yeah.
Once you start that dialogue with the universe, trust me, they want you to be in conversation. And they're very, like in my mediumship development, it was really funny. They were very kind of come hither with things. So they would drop in something really magnificent. And I'd be like, oh my God, I want more, I want more. And nothing would happen. And I'd be like, oh my God, it's been like 3 months and something. And then all of a sudden it would flood in because it was kind of like dropping, it's like dropping M&Ms. So you kind of follow the trail. So fostering that constant relationship opens all that stuff up. The death of someone will open all of those things up. Being in your teenage years, when your pituitary and pineal gland are kind of working with each other, as well as perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause, are times when those two glands are working with each other. So people can have openings in the beginning of their life, they can have openings in their teenage years. They can have an accident and their head gets hit in a certain way. There's any kind of different moments, I believe, within a soul's trajectory where if there's meant to be, there's an opening to that degree. But I think once you start witnessing the spirit world talking to you, then it's about being excited about it and figuring out how to nurture that if you're interested in it. So like if your girlfriend is seeing nature spirits, awesome, because that's a different realm of magic. And it would speak to her love of flowers and nature and all of those things. It would speak to her creativity. It really would be an interesting thing to like have a dialogue with her, because she's seeing those things. She's clearly looking at nature differently. So nature is reflecting back to her differently.
Yeah. I've noticed that for me, and maybe it's for you too. It's when I'm super relaxed that stuff comes in. I'm shuffling around the house in my slippers with a cup of coffee. I'm not thinking about anything. that's when it seems to happen. Is it that that part of your brain is more open? You don't have those stress centers going off?
So our brain is predisposed to gather information, understand information, compartmentalize it, and release it so it can be open to the next bit of information. The brain is, to me, completely different than the mind.
Yeah.
Brain is our library, it's got a whole process of how we gather information for our own survival and edification. The mind, to me, is preloaded with all the cockadoodle-doo that we need to figure out as human beings and unpack and unearth and discover and release and love and forgive and all of that, which takes a hot second. I mean, it's not like by 13 you're going, yeah, I've transformed my life, I've figured out everything. So once you get to that that dialogue with yourself, and you start nurturing and realizing you're the storyteller and you can reframe things so you're not the victim, which is the human consciousness, it actually is helping you grow, then that mind space becomes an open field. And in that open field, that's quieter dialogue can be heard. But until I find, and again, it'll come in like lightning bolts, even when you've got a mind, a field full of trash, I don't know, leftovers, who knows, but they're the lightning bolts that come in that kind of get your attention in that space. But the more open that mind space is, to me, that's when we as humans meet the spirit world, kind of like Michelangelo and or Adam and God about touching the finger, that part. It's that moment in the mind space, and then we start co-creating our life, like you've done with this channel. You had that moment where all of a sudden you said, God, I was getting all these inspirations and I didn't know, and all of a sudden I had to. Well, you were that space was created. There was enough space created where you could be in dialogue with guides and angels and whomever that's guiding you to grace, that guiding you and kind of cattle prodding you into this next, evolution and gift, because this is certainly fruitful for you and your curiosities, but it's equally fruitful for others to maybe be privy to conversations they wouldn't normally have, maybe have a completely opposite opinion, which is awesome, because then they're very clear on what they need to pursue and what they understand and know. But I think where we could be better is not needing to judge others for what they believe, but just see that there's different opinions and that some people are really solidly happy with those ideas. And that it's not ours to try to disenfranchise and disrespect what they rely on if it works for them, and just stay in our lane.
Mm-hmm. And I have found that spirit loves to drop clues. They're all about the clues. They're giving us clues all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You have written a book, Soul Conversations. Tell us a little bit about that.
I wrote it, I think, almost, 5 years ago, which seems so crazy. I'm working on my second book now, but it's called Soul Conversations, A Medium Reveals, a word that I was like, do we really want to say that? A medium reveals how to cultivate your intuition, heal your heart, and connect with the divine. The beginning of the book talks about the soul, kind of what I'm talking about, the duality of the soul, the principles of the universe, and why I believe we're here based on sessions I've had and past life regressions and all the different kind of work I've done in the last 2 decades. And then the center section is about guides and angels and magicians that kind of hold space for us that are unseen to us. And then the third part of the book is how to apply it all to life and be a spiritual being in a physical form and nurturing yourself.
Yeah. And we wanted to be here. Can you imagine?
Yeah, we did.
We thought this would be fun.
But it is fun. It is fun. It is, but fun needs to also encounter, it need to embrace adversity and struggle, because we really learn what we're made of, not when everything's groovy and we're sitting in the backyard going, hey, I'd like another Mai Tai. It's when those crossroads come that we really kind of have to dig deeper, that I think we witness the most extraordinary aspects of humans. And no story of any human being is not interesting, which I find fascinating.
That is so true.
Really interesting. Each person has their own gift that they're bringing. So
Which is fascinating. How many billions of us are there on the planet? And we're all contributing to the wonderful soup that is.
Yeah. And you're so right about the signs and symbols. I was at a doctor's appointment yesterday, and I was talking to the very lovely wife of the doctor that I was visiting. And she was talking about writing a book. And I just said, oh, absolutely, got to get the best feeling about it. And I randomly told her about something I saw on the way to the office, which was a pink Escalade. Now, I've never seen a pink Escalade. Escalades are beautiful cars. It looked a little different being Pepto-Bismol pink. And I called it that. And she goes, oh my God, I use that phrase all the time. And I said, okay, so what if the Escalade that I passed right as I turned into your parking lot was a sign and a symbol that you're doing the right thing? So she goes, okay, I can take that. So I left the office. The whole afternoon was Pepto-Bismol pink, including 3 Mack trucks. What?
Oh,
Driving
wow.
back to Palm Springs that all had, wait for it, on the side of the truck, 1. And so I texted her today and I said, oh my God. Like, and then right as I'm texting her, I lift my arms and a gal comes out of a store wearing a Pepto-Bismol colored top.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the fun of it is inviting the universe to just be in dialogue with you. And you don't have to be a medium. You don't even have to be intuitive. You just have to ask the right question, which is talk to me.
Mhm.
Show me, show up today. I'm going to focus on one loved one in the spirit world. Give it to me. I'm going to have my eyes open. But the invitation, the reason why it's such a great gift you give to yourself is then you're in your life like a child on, Christmas morning or another holiday going, oh, what's the present today? Where is it? Oh my God, there it is. And oh, I see it over there. And it brings you back to that childlike wonder where you're actually in the moment of your life, which is spectacular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautifully said. So how do we find out more about you?
My website is austynwells.com, Austyn, AustynWells. You can find me there. I am happily busy. I have a free meditation I lead every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. You can find that link on my website. I offer classes, retreats. I've got a trip to Egypt I'm leading next year. I have a
Oh,
membership where I help people cultivate a spiritual relationship with themselves. I offer individual sessions with people, group sessions, and and I'm writing, so, and other things. So I love this work. It's just delightful. And much like the time we had together, what I adore about it is every single human being on this planet is amazing. When you meet people one on one and you hear their stories and you understand how they got to this moment right now, there is a tremendous amount of connectivity, love, and appreciation for the strength of the human spirit. So my work allows me to constantly practice being that better human being because I get to connect with people and say, I see the miracle of you. Let's get you back to the point where you know that that's true. What I'm
yeah.
feeling and seeing and knowing, you're going to hold, and then you can go and flip someone else's light switch on and go, I see you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. I will have all of Austyn's information listed in the description box down below. Super easy to find. Check out the book. It's a wonderful read. Austyn, this has been such a delight and a treat for me. Thank you for giving us your time today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I had a
All right.
blast.
Okay. Thanks everyone for watching. Bye now. I hope you enjoyed this video. Coming up next, this is a good one. Or you might really like this one too. Either one of them could be perfect for you. Before you leave, don't forget to subscribe.